That's one way to look at it, Andrew. And Tom Telesco, the surprise hire that is now expected for the Raiders.
Welcome to the Put on Waivers Media Group, home of the Put on Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.
And welcome, everybody, to the glorious episode of the Put on Raiders podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, along with Ryan Holmes, and we are podcasting off the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. It's beautiful, but it's raining like crazy. We have floods all over the place out in San Diego, so it's pretty. People are like on rafts and boats out there. Hopefully they get the help they need in Southern California, because like a couple of days we like the rain, and all of a sudden we get too much and then we can't handle it. POR SBR is my Twitter handle, and Ryan Holmes is RHOLM22. The Raiders hired Antonio Pierce as their head coach. They paired him with former Chargers general manager Tom Telesco, and kind of shocked the nation a little bit. People were not happy, to say the least. I will say that, we'll break down all aspects of it. Don't love it, don't hate it, kind of in the middle. I'm not gonna go crazy for it. The guy we really wanted, we kind of seemingly never get, whether it's in the draft or or in the front office, as far as that goes. But we'll talk about that here on the Put on Raiders podcast. Ryan, how you doing today?
Doing good. They finally made the decision to name a general manager, and it was probably the guy everyone had third on their list out of three candidates, but it is what it is, and there's a reason why Mark Davis did it, and we'll get into why we think he did that.
All right, so we got some questions real quick, Nick, out of the 213, and why Tom Telesco? So fair question. I think it's for me, and I'll let Ryan go real quick. It is, you have Champ Kelly, you have Ed Dodds. They have some experience, but they never had to call the shots. So I think that was one of his biggest, probably in the room where he's, having a conversation with in an interview process, saying, hey, those guys are nice guys, but like, yes, I've been able to make those calls, and I've had really talented rosters and all those things like that. So I think his experience, coupled with the last two GMs who had no experience, Ryan, I think that was part of the decision making with Mark Davis today.
Yeah, we have to take Mark at his word here, who told The Athletic back at the NFL owners meetings that he didn't want to go first-time GM, first-time head coach. And had he stuck with Champ Kelly, AP, he would have had first time in both seats. If he would have went to Ed Dodds, it would have been a first time in both seats. I think once he made the decision to go to Antonio Pierce, he probably was second guessing what he wanted to do with the general manager position. There was pressure put on him from the locker room. And he probably felt some pressure from other teams asking to speak to Antonio Pierce. So it seems like Mark Davis changed course in the middle of all this interviewing process. And once he made the decision to go to Pierce, I think, Raider fans alike, us, even the beat writers that follow the team, just assumed it was going to be Champ Kelly or Ed Dodds.
Yep.
And we were kind of drawn back yesterday when we heard that Telesco was coming back for a second interview. He's experienced. He's been in the chair. He's done it for 11 years as a general manager. He's set up draft boards. He's gone through free agency. So nothing is going to be new to him. There is no learning curve here. He probably knows the Raiders roster inside and out, having been in the AFC West. So he probably has an idea of what he likes on the roster. And I'm sure AP will have some say in that as well. I've seen a lot of people freaking out that this is another rebuild. I don't think Tom Telesco took this job to tear this thing down. I think he's going to add on to it and try to take this team to the next step. And it all starts with the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, the quarterback situation is paramount here in this offseason. Anthony from Florida wants to know, how do we rate the move? Can you ask me in like May 1st after free agency and the draft? I mean, like I said, you hired an experienced guy. This is a culmination of, I think, Mayock and Ziegler just not being good at their jobs. So now he obviously wanted somebody with more experience. I know that people are going to say, "Hey, this is where this is the 63-point game, all the stuff like that." I mean, it is what it is as far as that goes. I'm not a big. I mean, like I said, I'm in the. He's right in the middle of the pack, maybe a little bit higher than as far as better than average. GM, he has some really good pieces on there. There's some questions there, and about him. And we'll go over that as well. But I'm not, as far as rating it, I think it's too early to rate it right now.
I would go B minus. I don't love it. I don't hate it.
Yeah, me too.
I do like the fact that he is experienced. He has hit on a number of draft picks. I know a lot of people are just going to run to X or Twitter and see a tweet here or there and decide to make up their own mind without actually doing the research and looking who he's actually drafted. And it's funny, a lot of people keep pointing to well, he gave up 63 to the Raiders. Well, so if wins aren't a quarterback stat, now defense is giving up points as a GM stat. I didn't know that. So it's surprising that the things people want to pick and choose. That team quit on their coach, on Brandon Staley. The one thing we know is he's been an above average drafter of players. He's been a terrible evaluator of head coaches, and he doesn't have to worry about that for now, as long as AP can hold on to this job into the foreseeable future. But if you actually look at the players he's drafted, he's hit on some picks. GMs don't hit on every pick. I mean, if you're getting guys that can start for you in the third, fourth, fifth round, that's a win. They don't need to be all pro players to be considered to be good draft picks. And I would argue his 2017 and 2018 drafts, and we'll break those down, are pretty good. There's not a lot of misses in those 2 years. The last 2 years, obviously 22 and 23, that's open for debate, but those players are still young players that are developing within the league. I would argue the issue with the Chargers hasn't been the talent on the roster. The issue has been the training staff, staying healthy, the coaching. Brandon Staley was just a reckless coach when it came to fourth down and gave away way too many games. But he also, during his time there, had two quarterbacks that were pretty good and still couldn't find a way to win half his game. So the Raiders have never had a GM, and in my lifetime, that's had prior experience. So this is a new thing for the organization, and we'll see how it works out over time.
We had three more questions real quick before we head to the rundown. Any insight into why the Chargers were hurt all the time? Not that he's not the Bill from the 7-8 wanted to know if we have any insight about that. I don't really have that. I mean, I'm not sure what their training facility or staff or whatever is, how that works, but it seemed like they were. I mean, I'm not sure. I've been looking at the injury numbers, but it seemed like, just from a AFC West, like we play them twice a year perspective, that the Chargers were always, their stars were always hurt. So I mean, I'm not sure how that as far as Telesco goes, he can just draft a talented player. I think it's everybody else's job to kind of keep him on the field.
Yeah, that you'd have to go back and look at every single injury and figure out, was that the first time he was injured? I think the biggest predictor of whether a guy's going to stay healthy or not, or did he stay healthy in college? And without breaking down every player that's missed time and what their college injury history looked like, it's going to be tough. Now, if all these guys stayed healthy, they get to the NFL and then they get hurt and then they're consistently hurt, then that might be an issue with the training staff and with strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
And the Raiders, by all accounts, are pretty good in that department. So maybe, they can get some guys on the field and they can stay healthy. The Raiders, knock on wood, haven't had a lot of big time injuries to their stars.
That's true.
Over the last couple of years. So we'll see going forward, but I don't off the top of my head remember him just drafting a bunch of guys that were hurt throughout the draft process and got him and they stayed hurt in the NFL.
Okay. Charlie from the 7760 out here near me wants to know, if you were Chip Kelly, would you ask out, or do we anticipate him asking out of the Raiders since being picked over for this GM position?
Champ Kelly. I think you said Chip Kelly.
I said Chip Kelly. I'm sorry. Champ Kelly. Yeah, Chip Kelly can leave. Talk about Champ Kelly.
Yeah, I've seen that floating around on X today too, and that's not really how it works in pro sports. Like this kind of thing happens within organizations quite frequently when they go hire someone into a position over someone that was internal. He's under contract. He has a family that he needs to take care of. What usually happens in this situation is Champ Kelly would stay aboard and then he'd leave next offseason when he has a chance to over the next year to reach out and talk to other teams while he's still under contracts, which is kind of frowned upon, but it does happen in professional sports, and kind of try to find a soft landing spot next year. So unless someone just blows his doors off and gives him a job equal to or better than what the Raiders are going to offer him, which is probably assistant general manager, he's not leaving to go do anything below that. Like, he's not just going to leave to go be, an area scout or a cross checker or even like a pro personnel director. He's in a much better position now.
Yeah.
If his goal is to be a GM in the future, to stay in that assistant GM role, unless another team can give him that position or higher.
And I think it also looks to me, if I was another employer, I'd be more inclined to interview him or look at him highly if he stayed in that adverse situation, because obviously he's disappointed that he didn't get the job. He stayed, he worked professionally. Telesco can vouch for him and say he did a really good professional job. And then maybe maybe in the future he'll get. I think Champ is still pretty young. He can still hopefully get a position anywhere else if he doesn't do it with the Raiders.
Let's not forget, Champ Kelly's been assistant general manager for 2 seasons. It's not like this guy has 15 years under his belt as an assistant GM and got passed over. He doesn't have a track record of being in that position. He didn't get an opportunity with the Raiders post trade deadline to make trades, go through a free agency period, go through a draft. He doesn't have any of that on his resume. So at the end of the day, Telesco's resume is better than Champ Kelly's, and he's experienced, and that's why Mark Davis with him. Personally, I would have gone Ed Dodds. That's my personal opinion. I would have ranked it Dodds, Kelly, Telesco in that order, but I know why Mark Davis did it.
And last one is Lee from Hawaii wants to know: Are we worried about him kind of staying put in his draft position and not moving up? Because if the Raiders want to get a quarterback, they probably have to move up. For me, I would say it depends. I think like what the Raiders, what he did with the with the Chargers. If the board was right there for him, and a lot of times them sitting where they sat, they end up getting a pretty good player. So if the player you want is like coming right in your living room, then why move? Right? As far as that goes, like when I'm in 2021 when you're looking at Rashawn Slater, if he's your guy and you're just waiting, and you get to like 11, 12, and you say he's going to be there for us. I mean, that's the guy you want. So just stay there.
Yeah, Telesco has a history of taking the best player available that falls to him. He's taken some players that have fallen that have gone out and actually been very good players. During the interview process, the issue of what he would do with the quarterback, I'm sure it came up multiple times. He's answered to Mark Davis what he wants to do. And I'm sure if the answer was, I'm not going to trade up, I want to sit at 13, or I'm going to go get so-and-so in free agency, and Mark Davis and AP weren't really on board with that, or Champ Kelly, who was in the meeting, or whoever was in the meeting. I'm pretty sure he didn't just sit there and go, I don't like to trade in the draft, I'm not going to trade in the draft. He wouldn't have got the job if he said that. So he clearly conveyed a plan to the committee of what he would do to fix the quarterback position, and I'm sure everyone signed off on what he suggested. Now, will that come to fruition? Will he be able to have enough capital to make the trade? Will he have enough cash to go out and get a free agent quarterback that he likes? But the Raiders are going to do something at quarterback here, and whatever Tom Telesco's vision is, it has been conveyed over to the people with the Raiders before he was hired. It's not like he's not just going to sit there with his hands tied in the draft and be like, stubborn, I'm not trading. He knows he needs a quarterback. He's in the division with Justin Herbert, who he drafted. He did find a franchise quarterback for a franchise. That is a signing point that the Raiders have never had in my 40 years of existence, 45 years. And then he knows he's in a division with Patrick Mahomes too. So he's not going to stand pat and just roll the dice with Aiden O'Connell.
I don't think that happens either. As far as that goes. So let's talk reputation of Tom Telesco. And I did have a bunch of Charger fans text me some things that they liked and didn't like about his tenure. we'll go over that. But you mentioned BPA, and it also looks like, for me, size over, like if he'd rather err on the side of bigger, stronger, faster. I mean, I know people don't like. I know one thing that Charger fans hated. Coach B, who I do the USC show with, he's a USC fan and the Charger fan, and like they just can't stand to watch Zay Flowers because Zay Flowers, because Quentin Johnson was picked over Zay Flowers. But I can see size, big receiver. They're probably trying to replace Mike Williams, stuff like that. So I would, if you're gonna error on best player available, on size, speed, all those things like that, I can live with that part of it as far as that goes.
I would say that's most NFL draft rooms. If players are equally graded and one guy's substantially bigger and speed isn't a big issue, most teams are going to lean towards the bigger guy. Now, if they're not equally graded, then it's a different conversation. But yeah, they do have a history, and people forget too. Like, this team's in a not a great salary cap position, and by all accounts, what I've seen today was Telesco didn't have much say in that. That was more one of the Spanoses who's in charge of contracts. I will say this though, they have to look at most teams when they draft isn't for that year. They may look 2 years out, and they know that Keenan Allen and Mike Williams' contracts are about to go into the 30 million plus range, and they're not going to be able to have both those guys on the roster in 2024. So they took a chance in 2023 to address that position, knowing that one or both of those guys likely would not be back. So they're trying to fill a position a year ahead of time, which most teams do. And once you get to a certain point, you're not trying to fill the roster just for that season. You're looking 1-2 years out. Did they take the right receiver? Right now, it looks like they did not. But we don't know how they had these guys ranked and lined up and what they used. But if you do look at it, that their roster, they do, I would say, except for defensive back, but offensive line, defensive line, wide receiver, they tend to have some pretty big physical players.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like Johnson can get open. He just securing the football has been an issue for him this year. So if he gets those hands popping, then maybe he'll get going. So let's go through these drafts real quick. He started with 2000. He started in 2013 with this team, taking over for who took over for AJ was something Smith, as AJ Smith, what's his name again?
AJ Smith, I think.
AJ Smith, right? Yeah. So what do you like about these? What do you what trends are we seeing in a Tom Telesco regime?
It does look like he likes to go Power Five conference in the first couple of rounds, kind of take the layups, and then you see him kind of go with some smaller division guys later on. But the first thing that jumps out in 2013 is he took Keenan Allen out of Cal in the third round. And at the time, Keenan Allen ran like a 4.6 or 4.7 at his pro day. He couldn't run. But they still took him. He could get open. He's been a 6-time Pro Bowler, and Keenan Allen's career stands on its own. He's got nearly 11,000 yards and over 900 receptions, and he got him in the third round. If you look at his first two picks that year, DJ Fluker, they took him 11th overall, but DJ Fluker's been okay. He hasn't been great in his career, but he's been a starter in the NFL for 7 or 8 seasons. Manti Te'o from Notre Dame came out with all the hype.
Yeah.
He fell to the second round. They took a chance on him. He had an okay career for about 4 or 5 years before it kind of fell apart. But Keenan Allen, you can hang your head on him. Keenan Allen, there's a chance he's going to be a Hall of Fame player when his career is over, when his numbers are put up against other receivers. So you got to like that. Getting that guy in the third round, I've seen a number of people say, well, he's good in the first and second round. He hasn't drafted a guy worth a damn after that. I just gave you, he drafted a Hall of Famer in the third round in his first draft. So pretty good.
Let's see here who we got here. And then the 2017 was probably the crown jewel of it all, right? I mean, as far as that breakdown, really good. Looks like just kind of from first to seventh. That was a pretty good year for Telesco. And then he did go Western Kentucky in the second round. For him that's a little bit of different, little bit of a curveball there for him.
Yeah, and if you just back it up real quick, I mean, he's drafted guys that played in Pro Bowls in the first round. Jason Verrett played in a Pro Bowl. He was a first rounder in 14. Melvin Gordon, two-time Pro Bowler, first rounder in 15. Denzel
Bill
Perryman, second
Perryman.
rounder in 2015, Pro Bowler. 2016, you got Joey Bosa, 4 Pro Bowls. Hunter Henry's had a pretty good career. They took in the second round. I think 2017 and 2018 are his best 2 drafts by far. Mike Williams, first round. He took him at 7. He did have some injuries at Clemson. He has not overcome those in as an NFL player, but he still had a very good career to this point. Forrest Lamp was a miss in the second round, as you mentioned, from Western Kentucky. But then he took Dan Feeney, who's been a 5-year starter in the league. Rayshon Jenkins has been a 4 or 5-year starter, has been a pretty good player at safety.
Desmond King.
Desmond King made a Pro Bowl in the 5th round. Sam Tevy started for 2 years, I believe. He has started at offensive tackle for them. And Isaac Rochelle in the 7th round has been a fairly decent pick who stayed in the league. He's been a Raider. Not that these guys are blowing, the doors off stats wise, but these guys are all starters. I mean, if you look at the number of games these guys have played, Mike Williams 88, Dan Feeney 112, Rayshon Jenkins 109, Desmond King 105, Sam Tebby 58, Isaac Rochelle 78. These guys not only stayed in the league, they've stayed in the league for a long time. Where most teams, you're talking 5th, 6th, 7th round, a lot of those guys a year or two and they get replaced. So that's a strong draft from top to bottom. When you look at getting a Pro Bowler in the 5th round, a starting tackle in the 6th round, a safety that's been a pretty good player in the 4th round, a starting interior offensive lineman in the 3rd round. Now, a lot of these guys didn't stay with the Chargers. They've gone on to other places. And then if you just look at 2018, again, best player available, Derwin James Felton, and they took him. The Raiders had a chance to do that. They did not. They went Colton Miller. Uchenna Nwosu has been a very good edge rusher from USC, who's now with the Seahawks. Justin Jones had a pretty good year last year with the Chicago Bears with 4.5 sacks. He's had 12 sacks as an interior lineman. In his career, he's played in 85 games. Kaiser White's been a pretty good linebacker who's now with, I believe he's with the Cardinals. Scott Quisenberry has been a 2-year starter. He's the 5th round offensive lineman. And Justin Jackson had a pretty good run there for a couple of years at running back as a running back too. So those 2 years alone, that's a lot of talent.
I got a question for you real quick is, do you think, because a lot of these names, like especially when I look at that 2018 draft, like a lot of those names ended up, their second contract wasn't with the Chargers, right? So, or maybe I'm thinking
only James is the only one.
James the only one, right? So
yeah,
is that just that could be the Chargers just front office, or is that they seem like some of those guys are really still really good players and could help the Chargers. And then obviously he has to make a decision on whether or not to sign him to a second contract. Just letting good players walk. That was one of the things that Charger fans were saying, besides a couple of players, they'll draft a good lot of players, and then those lot of players end up leaving in free agency.
Well, a lot of these players, if they're in the 2018 draft, they would have been free agents after 4 seasons, the non-first rounders. So you're talking 2018, 2019, 2021. So they would have hit free agency in 2022. That's, and then they just paid Justin Herbert. So you have to figure in when you start having to pay the quarterback, you're going to lose some of the guys. I would take it a step further. Nwosu's a good edge rusher, but do you pay Nwosu when you have Mack and Bosa? No, you don't. Kaiser White, when you invest the first rounder in Kenneth Murray and you go out and sign Eric Kendricks, who's been a Pro Bowl linebacker, do you spend money on Kaiser White? So you have to look at who they have on the roster at those same positions before you want to pay them. Justin Jones, they probably should have held on to. I don't know what he signed with the Bears or how he ended up in Chicago, but he had a pretty good year. And Drew Tranquil, you can say the same thing, who was in a 4th rounder in 2019, who's a starter for the Chiefs. Again, when you have Kenneth Murray, who they invested a first rounder in, not saying that Kenneth Murphy's a great player, but they still have him under contract as a first rounder, and Aaron Kendricks. You don't need 3, 4, 5 linebackers making money. So when those guys hit free agency, they would have been backups on the Chargers defense. Not that the Chargers defense wasn't good, but that's more to the scheme of Brandon Staley than anything. So you have to kind of look at who's on the roster, where they've invested money. they can't pay everyone, and that's a problem you have when you start hitting on draft picks. Like you can't pay them all. You have to decide which ones you want to keep and which ones you don't. And then if you address that position in free agency, then you're going to have to lose guys that you have as well.
Yeah, and I think especially you mentioned once you start paying when you start paying Herbert, then all these other guys end up going 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 away as far as that goes. So
I would argue this for the Raider fans that want to argue that he's not good after the second round. Go look at the Raiders picks after the. Yeah, obviously Max Crosby is an anomaly, but go look at their third, fourth, fifth, sixth rounders over the last 10 years and then compare them to what Telesco's done.
They're gonna say Renfro and Renfro and Max Crosby.
Renfro's on his way out of town.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Let's go through last year's real quick. So I liked Henley coming out of Washington State. Haven't really seen a lot from him this year.
Peloto's a good pick. He had a good year.
Peloto had a great year, and don't have the 4.5 sacks. I mean, that's still a really good year. But he also was one of the league leaders in pressures for rookies as well too. So he ended up having a good year. And if Quentin Johnson can catch the football a little bit, he should be he definitely will be a guy who is going to be a decent receiver coming up in these years. So I think
Darius Davis was a first team all pro returner as well.
Yeah.
As a fourth round rookie.
Special teams. I think the biggest thing about it is I think the image of what people wanted, like the picture everybody painted in their mind, they didn't get that full picture. So like that's that's probably part of the disappointment of it. They wanted either, I think first it started with Kelly, and then when Dodds got involved in it for the second time, people really wanted Dodds. We wanted Dodds. And looks like I mean, we don't know if Dodds is going to go with Harbaugh, but the Chargers did interview somebody else who has ties with Harbaugh as well too. So it's not just Dodds or Dodds, and that guy can go can go to LA. We'll see what happens, but I think that's the hardest part for Raider fans is that the picture of they had in their mind kind of got sidetracked with this move for Telesco, and I think 24 hours they can kind of like sit back and think that, hey, we'll see what happens. And I tweeted after this over, I was like, Tom Telesco is one offseason and one draft away from, winning everybody over. So that's all it really takes is that. And then I can't really judge this move until after free agency and after the draft.
I'm going to take plenty of heat for this take, but I think the Raiders have been so bad for so long. The only thing that Raider fans have going for them is they seem to beat the Chargers and Broncos every year. And that's the only thing they can look forward to. They don't make the playoffs. They don't win playoff games, but they seem to find a way to beat the Chargers and Broncos. So because it's a division rival, just look at baseball. It's like a Dodgers fan signing a Giant. They hate all the Giants. They don't think they're any good. And I think that has a lot to do with this is the fact that they're within the AFC West, and it's a team the Raiders have had some success with. One of the few teams in the league they've had success against. So they just automatically assume this is a terrible hire because he got let go from the Chargers. If he had the same resume and it didn't say Chargers on it, it said Tampa Bay Buccaneers or Tennessee Titans, I think Raider fans would have a completely different outlook of what this hire is. Now, again, we're on record saying we wanted Ed Dowds. But at the same time, if you wanted a GM who's on the market, who has had experience, which is what Mark Davis wanted, there's not a lot of those guys out there right now. Raider fans don't like retreads. They want their guy. They want the Raider way. They want the guy that they groomed, that came up through their system. The Raiders have tried that with GM after GM after GM that has never had experience, and it hasn't worked. So I'm okay. Like, let's see what happens. He has drafted good players. Until they win, every move he makes is going to get criticized. If they decide to keep Josh Jacobs, people are going to criticize it because he spent money on the running back. If they let him walk, people are going to criticize it because you let a locker room leader go. So this is not going to stop. Every draft pick he makes, Raider fans are going to criticize because they don't take the guy he doesn't take the guy they want. I will tell you this as a Raider fan, if you want best player available in the draft, this is probably your best chance to get it in a line with guys Raider fans want, because the Raiders over the last 20, 30 years haven't taken the guy Raider fans want. So Tom Telesco has done that as far as taking best player available on guys that dropped to him. But this rhetoric will not change until they kick the football off next September and they go out on the grass and win games. And if they don't win games, Raider fans are going to hate this even more. But they have to figure out the quarterback position first. That's Tom Telesco's number one job: figure out the quarterback position.
No question about it. So it seems like playing devil's advocate for a little bit is, why not, since we're so close to the AFC championship game and an NFC championship game, why not wait till the Final Four is over to kind of see if any one of those two losing teams, anybody in that front office would come over for a interview before going with Telesco.
I'm not sure. I mean, you still could have interviewed them. I'm not sure they're going to fire their acting GM. You can bring them over. So if you're looking for experience, you're not going to get that by interviewing other teams, director of college scouting, or going and talking to their assistant general manager. I have a hard time thinking the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Lions, or the 49ers are going to fire their general manager. I don't think John Lynch, Brad Holmes, Eric DeCastro, and obviously Brent Veach are in any way going to lose their job based on the outcome of this weekend's games.
No, I'm not. I mean more so somebody, their assistant GMs in those buildings, just to get a conversation with somebody from a organization that's winning and playing at a high level. Not, I mean,
the Raiders could have done that for the last 3 weeks or 2-3 weeks, and they chose not to. So I don't think
that's weird.
Narrowing it down to these Final Four teams means anything. If they wanted to talk to guys like Mike Bongzani from the Chiefs, they could have done that. They chose not to. They tried to request Adam Peters from the 49ers, but he got hired by the Commanders. So they did reach out to one of those candidates.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you want a process. You wanted to, get that stuff. So, I mean, he had a process. He had 3 candidates. He picked the one with the most experience, because the Raiders have gotten burned with not having experienced front office people in the past. So I know, like I said, we can't until the draft.
I do wonder.
Go ahead.
I do wonder if Max Crosby never said anything and never went to Ian Rappaport, and I love Max Crosby, if this same outcome would have happened, because it was clear as day once AP was hired that from now looking back at it, they were going to go with the experienced candidate. Had Max not said anything and they kept Champ Kelly, maybe they went and got an experienced coach. So I know we all wanted the first-time guy in both seats, Dodds, Pierce, Kelly, Pierce, but I don't think Mark Davis was ever going to go that route now looking at who he decided on.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, we will never know what would have been said, but I mean, what would have happened if Max didn't say that? But it is interesting that, maybe that was definitely, he could have even said I gave him AP. I'm going to do what I want as far as the front office goes. I mean, maybe if he didn't say anything, maybe they would have ended up with AP and Kelly, or maybe not. I think, as far as the coaching goes, I still would have, because I like grabbing information. I still would have talked to a bunch of other coaches. There's a lot of talented coaches who are free right now. I would definitely kind of pick their brain about off-season stuff and what would you do with our roster? What would you do with our quarterback situation? How would you improve it? How would you, what would you try to do to get there? What GMs would you possibly work with? Stuff like that. I mean, that's what I would do, but they didn't do that. They just hired AP after that comment. And I think you said last week too, the pressure is, the players have to perform. If you go out there on a limb and you say all those things about AP, then you can't be starting the season off 1-4.
Jerry Tillery might want to might want to unpack or pack up his locker because he got cut by Telesco, and they can actually save some money by letting him go prior to March 16th. But I will say this as well, as far as Telesco, let's give him a chance and see what he can do. I think what's going to happen is if he doesn't trade up in the first round and he doesn't go get one of the 3 quarterbacks that Raider fans or 2 quarterbacks Raider fans really want, you're going to start to hear this. Well, Champ would have gotten us Daniels. Champ would have gotten us Caleb. Champ would have done this.
You
Like,
can't
we
say
can't
that.
say that. I've already seen it.
I've
already seen those on X today. So the whole CJ Stroud was blocked by McDaniels. That's not true. Like, the Texans weren't trading that pick. Like, there's no Texan sources come out and said, yeah, we would have traded that to the Raiders, but it got blocked. Like, I don't believe that the Texans were ever moving off that pick because they ended up trading up to get Will Anderson too. So, like, they were all in on Will Anderson and CJ Stroud the whole time. So once the Raiders couldn't get to 1, I know there was a report that Ziegler had a trade, but that doesn't mean that means he called an offer to trade. That doesn't mean the Texans were ever going to accept that trade.
And who knows what that trade was? I mean, like that's just how do you?
It's revisionist history. They just make it however you want to.
So it is what it is. So I'm not gonna, we can't go crazy about that. But like I said, I think the chances to be given, whether or not, I think the Raiders Nation just needs like 24 hours, 48 hours to breathe, because we're
I'm not gonna lie, I needed about 2 hours. Like, I was like, whoa, really? Like,
I kind of, for me, I was like, as soon as it was the second interview and it was Tom Telesco, I was like, I mean, that was like, yeah, okay, something. There was something to it, but nobody was really no. The big reporters never had anything, and all of it, and none of the big guys had it. So it was just, I think it really came down to the experience part of it, and he just and Mark Davis could not stomach another first time guy. I mean, and especially with going with the first time head coach, and if it doesn't work out and Vrabel goes somewhere and wins, people are going to say, hey, he didn't even talk to Vrabel. So just remember, like, this is the head coach that everybody pounded for. So don't like change it up if Harbaugh does the Schottenheimer thing and does the Harbaugh thing and really, takes off with the Chargers, and if this is probably the worst you might see the Broncos. Who knows? Like, if the Broncos could get a quarterback too. They need a quarterback, and then Mahomes is Mahomes. So this is not going to be a year where we can sit back and just say, oh, we're going to rebuild. Like, this is no. This is like, they got to make the playoffs. They got to win. They got to win.
You have Devontae Adams on a reasonable number on his contract for 1 more year, and then the payment kicks in. I think he goes over $40 million against the cap the 2 years after that. So they can't sit around. And Tom Telesco, I don't think, took this job to trade Devontae Adams. He probably came here because he wants Devontae Adams on his roster. So we'll see what happens. There is a lot of pressure on this team to go out and win. I've seen people, throw around Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is going to cost $50 million as a free agent. Like, the Raiders can't blow all of their cap space on the quarterback position. So we'll see what happens. I do see a lot of Raider fans that are now they're saying, great, now just give us the great offensive coordinator. Like, who's the great candidate out there that has a resume that's done it? Those guys are on teams.
Yeah.
Like, they're still coaching.
Yeah. And I would also say too, is that, it is possible that the guy the Raiders get for an OC is a first time play caller. Like, it's because Zach Robinson is on a team with Sean McVay, who calls plays. Like, a lot of times it's going to be, when you're on a good offense, it's not a defensive head coach who's running the show. It's an offensive head coach who calls the plays. So you saw that with Mike McDaniel, who went from San Francisco to Miami. So, like, I mean, it is possible. Like, I mean, but I think Raiders might have to brace themselves for that fact that it might end up being like a Alex Van Pelt or somebody like that who has never called plays in the league, and that's okay. I think you have to look at him as, okay, what scheme does he run? Is it a scheme that, what scheme does that team run? Do they run a scheme that is prevalent in the league, that scores points, all those things like that.
The Raiders would have a hard time running Cleveland's scheme because they don't have that offensive line of those run blockers. It's
They
very
don't.
run
They
dependent and
don't.
play action. It is concerning that every name that comes up seems to have a tie to Marvin Lewis from the Bengals from years ago.
Well,
I do say this for everyone that wants the young and upcoming unknown. This is right back to the Raider fans wanting to. We want the unknown, the guy that's never been a play caller. We want to point to Mike McDaniel. We want to point to Kevin O'Connell. It goes the other way too. Luke Getsy was who no Raider fans want, was the same guy a couple of years ago. He was sought after. He was on the Packers roster. He didn't call plays there, and then he got an opportunity to call plays in Chicago, and we saw how that went. So it's not a slam dunk that if you go get one of these guys from McVay or LaFleur or Shanahan, that it's going to be a home run. Like there's misses too. So sometimes you have to take the known quantity with the experienced retread offensive coordinator that's had experience, or
100%.
you bite the bullet and see what happens. So obviously Getsy owes some money to Aaron Rodgers. Like don't take the guy from a Hall of Fame quarterback that's never called plays.
Yes.
We'll see.
I mean, I know it's a name that's, I think with the way everything is set up right now, and I know I haven't seen his name float around at all, but I think this offense with this situation for AP, I would probably give a call to Miami and see how Darren Bevel's feeling about that, because they need somebody in there who is a guy who knows who we can know what he's gonna do. Or have an idea of it. Like, Shane Waldron would interview last week that ended up getting the job in Chicago. So, we know he's off the board. I know a lot of Raider fans wanted him in house, but that didn't work out. But yeah, that's he needs a veteran, and he needs somebody who can just take that. When you're a head coach, you have a huge meal in front of you that you're making. You got to have somebody got to come in and be that sous chef to help him in the kitchen, because it's a lot going on for AP the first time through this whole off season.
Yeah, I would take a shot at Zach Robinson if he wanted to come over, and he has a tie to Marvin Lewis. We heard the name Dan Pitcher yesterday, who's the quarterback coach with the Bengals, and he seemed to have a pretty decent amount of success with Jake Browning. Is his quarterback for most this year was Joe Burrow was hurt. So, there is something there, whether he's going to be a full-time play caller and can he be a successful offensive quarterback. You got to remember, these first-time guys are going to have growing pains. The new system, new install, they're not going to hit the ground running with a rookie quarterback for the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season and just light up the scoreboard. So you have to be patient. I do think, not that I'm advocating for Darrell Bevell, but he was an offensive play caller in Seattle where they had Marshawn Lynch, Russell Wilson. They ran the ball a lot of play action. They probably should have run the ball in the Super Bowl on the 1 yard line, but that's a debate for another time. But
100%.
That's probably the style of offense that AP wants to marry with playing good defense and field position. It's hard to get these air it out, offenses that McVay and Shanahan have, and Shanahan has a good defense, but a lot of the other guys that have branched off don't have the defense they have there. To be that open, free offense and then have that smash mouth defense, it's rare that you see those two combos together. It's not complementary of one style to the other. I think AP at heart wants to pound the football. He wants to bring Josh Jacobs back, and especially even with a rookie, even if you get up in the top 3 and you take a Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels, those guys aren't going to hit the ground week 1 and be seasoned veterans and know defenses and be able to get in and out of plays on line of scrimmage. They're going to have to run the football one way or another, no matter who the quarterback is, unless they find a way to get a veteran like a Russell Wilson or a Kirk Cousins, who I don't think I would go out and get either one of them.
Yeah.
Well, we're just going to have to see what happens and how they address the quarterback position.
Yeah, no question about it. Anything else on Tom Telesco or the OC search?
It'll be interesting if Ed Dodds ends up with the Chargers, and then we get to see Dodds and Harbaugh, what that pairing does. Although I did see a report today that Greg Roman might be the offensive coordinator with Jim Harbaugh. Like Greg Roman coaching Justin Herbert just seems like a really odd fit to me. But we'll see
We'll
what
see.
happens.
We'll see.
There
We'll
should be
see.
a lot of movement here around the league over the next 7 to 10 days.
Yeah,
And then
this
get
is.
ready for Senior Bowl next week. We can start really looking at
Yeah,
some prospects.
and I just and I would I can't go because it's my son's birthday, but I did get credentials for that. But I just can't go. I want to go to Senior
That's
Bowl.
on that's on my bucket list.
I
I
can't
just
go. I
can't
can't
do
go.
it because of my job. Like this time of year, I'm starting to
Yeah,
work a lot.
yes, can't. I
I
can't.
would
I
love
can't.
to spend to go to the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, but I am. The combine is in my sights, so the combine is definitely in my sights. So, definitely, we'll definitely see about that. So, and we picked some games last week. We're gonna start picking some games here. So we got the Chiefs at the Ravens, and we got the Lions at the 49ers. If you believe the whole the whole conspiracy about it's already set up for Ravens 49ers. Don't worry about it with the 49ers winning it in the Super Bowl because of the way the logo has certain colors in it. It always matches team's colors. It's pretty. People got too much time on their hands. But Ravens Chiefs. What do you feel about that one? Going into Sunday.
I think the Ravens are going to win this game at home. I think Lamar can do enough with his feet. I think they can run the football against the Chiefs, kind of hold the ball. I think that pass rush can get home for the Ravens against the Chiefs and get to Patrick Mahomes. And then we've seen this year and even in the playoffs, like Travis Kelce's had some drops. He seems like he's lost a step. He's not quite the same player he was at his peak. Their receivers have a hard time holding onto the ball, and being a home game in Baltimore with the crowd last week there was incredible with how many false starts the Houston Texans had. So I just think, that I think it's going to be hard for the Chiefs to move the ball consistently against this Baltimore defense. And Baltimore is the best team in the NFL when you talk offense, defense, special teams, especially with Justin Tucker as the kicker. So the better teams at home, I'm going to lean that way with the Ravens.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with the Chiefs. The spread's 3.5. I mean, it's purely Mahomes. That's the only thing. I just feel like a situation where he might get the ball last, stuff like that. They just seem to find ways. This is the most. They have pretty much. The Ravens have not only beat good teams this year, defeat them. They have smashed good teams this year. Like every good team they played this year, they've completely smashed. So if this can just if the Chiefs can hang around, then obviously they can win they give themselves a chance to win the game, and maybe Kelsey, the Mahomes magic will happen again. But I'm gonna go KC in a squeaker in Baltimore to beat the Ravens. Let's see here. We got the Lions and 49ers. I'll go first and let you end the show. I think the defense of the Lions is very iffy. I don't know. I don't see how they're going to be able to stop the Niners in this game. I know Debo's hurt. I don't know if Laporta's hurt. I know they signed Zach Ertz, so I'm not sure if that was just for the other tight end or
Their
if it was
backup
for
got hurt.
the
Yeah, their
backup got
backup
hurt.
tight end got hurt.
But Laporta's fine. I saw a lot of people. I saw a lot of Niner fans on the X saying that this is unfair. You shouldn't be able to sign anybody right now. Once Zach Ertz became a Lion, I thought it was hilarious. But I'll see what with the Debo thing. But I think when they line up and just run the football, the Bucks ran the football pretty well last week. I think when they line up and just run the football and don't get cute. With McCaffrey, he can probably go for like 120, 150 in this game. As far as that goes, and I think the last thing on this game would be, I like golf a lot. I like golf more than once, but this has kind of been the one team that's been the Achilles heel. He's 3-6 against the Niners, and they pretty much have his number for the most part, except for that one playoff game, I guess. Actually, no, that was Stafford. That was Stafford. Sorry, but
I do think the matchup here with Detroit's offensive line and their ability to run the football. They control the ball and keep it away from the 49ers offense. But they have to score. They're going to run the ball. They're going to have to score touchdowns when they get down in the red zone. Jared Goff likes to throw the ball in the middle of the field between the hashes, and Mr. Fred Warner stands in the middle of the field. You can't really complete passes there. So they're going to have to do something at getting the ball in the flat, getting the ball outside, taking some shots against the corners down the field off of play action. If they can't run the ball in this game, I think they're dead in the water. Like, they basically have to come out and establish a line of scrimmage and just pound it and pound it and pound it. Defensively, I have a hard time believing they're going to be able to stop the 49ers. Their corners are not very good.
No.
And if you have Brandon Ayuk, if Debo finds a way to play, even Jennings is a big physical target. How are they going to guard Kittle? They're going to have to get turnovers. You know, a fumble, maybe 2 Brock Purdy interceptions. Brock Purdy's going to throw it to them. They just have to catch it, which last week the Packers couldn't find a way to catch it. The rookie kicker might have some nerves for the 49ers as we go down, you know, third quarter, fourth quarter, as this game gets tight. If they can run the ball and get a couple turnovers, they have a chance. I don't know if they can do everything they need. It should be a good game. I think the 49ers find a way to win it, and I think we get Ravens 49ers.
I'm going to go for the nightmare allegiant, 49ers and Chiefs for all Raider fans.
Did you see the referee that got assigned to that game? Did you read that today?
No, I didn't.
Chiefs game.
No.
So Sean Smith got assigned as the referee.
And
Sean's
isn't he the guy who always kind of like he favors the road team a lot, doesn't he, or no? Favors the road team a lot.
I caught a little bit of the article. He calls a lot of penalties on the home team, a lot of roughing the passers on the home team. I think the average, these numbers might be slightly off because I read it this morning. I think the home teams win 49% of the games, but when he's the ref over the last 3 years, the home team has only won 37%. It's the widest margin in the league. So he
how is that possible? Are you serious?
More than any other referee in the NFL over the last 3 years.
Well, was it
assigned to that game.
Sean Smith? You said,
yeah.
How was one referee?
37%. Basically, 1 out of 3, 2 out of 3 times he's reffed a game for the last 3 years, the road team has won.
That is amazing.
And having said that, I'm still going to take the risk.
Yeah, because
they don't call penalties in the playoffs. You can hold, you can pass interference, you can illegal contact.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter. They're not throwing the flags unless it's a false start or an offside.
That's an amazing number. That is an absolute amazing number. That's just crazy. All right, Raider Nation. Tom Telesco, new GM. Get behind it.
Tommy T.
Let's go. All right, Raider Nation.
Find the quarterback. That's all we ask.
And then, you know what, Tom? All the shit everybody's trying to give you on X today. You find a quarterback for this team, you're king. You're the king of Vegas. You can you never pay for a meal in your life. All right. See you later. See you, Raider Nation.
Take care.
In trouble. Gets away. On the run. Touchdown. Roman Wilson does it again. His 10th of the season.
Roman Wilson is going to run a post, but then he sees his quarterback move. Now they're late getting there.
Let's see if McCarthy can find him. Lumps it. Sideline. Edwards with a step. He's got it. Out of bounds at the 1. 39-yard gain.
McCarthy doubles out of the pocket and launches. End zone, Wilson! That had a vapor trail on it.
Loveland down the field. So he points Loveland down the field right now, and he's basically...